So these two sides that things are happening every day within me and within a lot of people. This side that really wants to stay safe. It's just really I'm going to go ahead and go to the banners here too. It's just, and we're going to talk about this confrontation here. This back and forth. This side that wants to stay safe, and there's this side that wants to take chances. It's this side that wants to grow. So I'm going to put this down. It's this side that doesn't want to take a chance and wants to stay comfortable, keep your nervous system calm. And then there's this side that really wants to strive and to go for it. So it's this battle back and forth. And we want to look at this in a way to where there's kind of this ebb and flow between the two, because one can't be without the other. So it's not like we have to be this versus thing where things are coming in confrontation with one another as far as all the way through. But we need to be truthful from one side seeing another. That confrontation needs to come up to where he's like I'm wanting to make this change for myself. You're holding me back. Let's work together on this. So that takes astute awareness. So we're going to talk about that side that wants to grow versus that side that wants to stay safe. Okay, so don't beat yourself up over this process. We're all learning. We're all growing here. What part grows? Now, really, when it talks about, like, we talk about personal growth, it's not like your beard grows or your mustache, your hair. You get to my age, your hair starts falling out. What really grows? I feel it's your awareness. It's your awareness that grows. We talk about personal growth. It's your awareness of everything involved. And that's where you get that kind of this saying is like, the more you see, the less you know. And that's real wisdom, So understanding that we have a lot of things going on in our lives, and the more we're aware of that, we have a choice in order to be excellent, or we have this choice to just kind of not be, just to kind of let go of things, let things go where they may. But there's this quote by Connor Beaton here that came up in this. I'm reading this book right now. I definitely recommend you giving this a look. It's men's work. This is the host of Man Talks. This is really well done. I mean, even the matte finish here, the black, the dark green, it really speaks to the masculine side of things here too. But it's a practical guide to face your darkness in self-sabotage and find freedom. Now, there's some really great stuff inside here. And there's one quote in here that really struck me. It's like he said that if there is no confrontation, there is no actualization of potential. There's no confrontation, there's no actualizing of your potential. We cannot just be spectators and just watch our life go in front of us, because your whole life, you could live an entire life without truly living the life you want. So we need to have that confrontation. So it got me thinking, it's like, where have I been like passive in my life? Where have I made a stand for myself? And I've really had to be pushed in order to really make a stand for myself, because I'm a bit of a pleaser, because I want to engage with the herd, and I just want to be accepted. That's been a lot of my whole life. So it takes a lot of courage in order to stand up to those parts of you that want to keep you safe. And you're going to have a conversation with that person, that entity, that part. Say, I appreciate you keeping me safe here, but I really need to do this. That's me being here. So again, my purpose, my why, this isn't really about followers. This is more about confronting myself and growing through it. So that's the whole thing. And let's go a little bit into recognizing what this shadow is and what comes up for you. Again, Jung's definition of the shadow is understanding there's these parts of you that you're trying to disown or get rid of. There's a lot of things that we as men have, or I have done before in my past, that a lot of this came from my numbing. Well, actually, even before the numbing, is this trying to be perfect, in everything. And if I don't have the perfect reaction, if I don't have the right answer, if I don't have the right appearance, or if I'm not being accepted for my actions, for my thoughts, my opinions, then I might be outcast. And so I'm not going to say what I truly mean. And there has been times where I've not been my authentic self, and I just say things to fit along with the herd. And when that happens, there's that part of you, and that's been that part of me that gets chucked back into the dark. And that builds, and that shadow grows when I've not been true to myself, said what I really want, or shared or expressed my own ideas. So it's those parts of yourself you don't feel fit. If you feel like an outcast and you're just tired of, like, look, I'm tired of being myself right now. I just want to do what everybody else is doing, So this happens, and that's how that shadow again shows up. And as I have examples of showing you what that shadow is, I have plenty of things that show up in my life that show that shadow. So to help me recognize it, I have some examples of how the shadow shows up, and then what we can do to move forward with that. So I've had a lot of in times in my life where I've had this innate need to be right, because if I'm wrong, again, I'm outcast. If I'm wrong, my ego suffers a big blow, and I've caught myself trying to be right rather than thinking about the entire part of me trying to be in love with this other person. A lot of times this comes up big time in relationships. Am I right? I mean, you're with your significant other. No one knows you better than this person. You live together, and you start. I felt like we enter these conversations on kind of like automatic, kind of autopilot. So we're reacting rather than taking time to respond, because pausing to take time to respond requires more brain power. It requires more awareness. And a lot of times we're just not going to do that because it takes up too much energy, right? You're in the flow. You're wanting to, you're got like a one-track mind. You're trying to accomplish this thing. Like, I want to get to the place where I'm driving to the place. I don't need directions. I know where I'm going. I know I can do this. Shouldn't you just stop and ask for direction? No, I'm not going to stop and ask for direction. Just, well, I'm going. I can do this. I can do it. Because I need to be right. And I can see, I told you I could do it. I told you. I win. This constant, it just shows up unconsciously, this needing to be right all the time. And the thing is, when you feel that you've won, have you really won? How does that other person feel? Because if you win, that other person thereby loses. There's no tie. So what are we trying to gain here? So that's that needing to be right when in a relationship. That's when the big part of your shadow shows up. So that's number one, recognizing that. Number two, that black or white thinking. This, look, if you voted for this person, that means you are a blank. Let's just say that's not the case. That's, again, not just black or white thinking, this absolute. And we want to think in absolutes because it's easier to just recognize, oh, you're one of those. Therefore, I can put you into this box right over here. Well, if you're not working out and you're gaining weight, then you're just going to be fat for the rest of your life. If you are consuming more calories than you're burning, therefore you're always going to be fat. That's not necessarily the case. We want this idea of just being absolute on our answers. And a lot of times that creeps up because a lot of fear can come up if our truth, what we know to be true, isn't right. If our belief system is tested, and this is what causes a lot of this black or white thinking. So if you catch yourself into saying, no, it's either this or this, it's either left or it's right. Either you own a Subaru, you are a granola. If you own a Ford F-250, you are a redneck. You're cutting a big part off. You're cutting the nuance out of life. And life's all about nuance. It's all about like understanding the gray, the different shades of gray. I mean, could be 50 shades of gray. I don't know if you've ever read that. I'd never read that book, but it's a little risque at this point. But anyway, what I'm saying here, life's about nuance. It's not black or white. So when you recognize that, it's that shadow creeping in. This next one's a big one for me. And catastrophizing. Just recently, we Adele and I, she took me back to her hometown of Cape Town. We were on our way to South Africa, and we're leaving Boise here. And we noticed that on our flight itinerary, one of our connecting flights was in Munich, and that they were planning to have a strike at the entire airport just hours after our plane leaves Munich. So just like 4 to 6 hours, we had like a window of time to land in Munich, hop on our plane, and leave before there would be a strike for 2 days. And that was terrifying to me, because we were going to lose 2 days of our vacation just stuck in Munich. Just what are you going to do in Munich? Drink beer. But I was deathly terrified, So everything had to be perfect. We're taxiing, go to Denver. We were in Boise Airport, and we're taxiing, and we're just about ready to leave, and then we're waiting to taxi, and then finally it comes over the PA. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot of wind in Denver, so what we're going to do is we're going to turn back to the terminal, and everyone's just gonna take a break for a little bit, and then we're gonna wait for these winds to die down, and we're gonna be on our way to Denver. So turn around, folks. All right, and thank you very much for flying Delta. So I start freaking out. It's like, great. Now there goes our vacation. We're gonna miss our flight. We're gonna miss our flight. Not thinking that Adele had to remind me that we had a 6-hour layover in Munich. We were only going to be 30 minutes or an hour behind. But my fear took over, my catastrophizing, me wanting to be absolute and understanding. We're done. It's over. We just pack it up and go back home. That was me catastrophizing. God. And it was painful when she pointed out, it's like, you're catastrophizing. And that was painful, just to even realize, yeah, you're right. God, I suck. Why did I do that? It's that shadow side coming up, just like saying, I need certainty. Just get ready for the worst. The worst is going to happen. The worst is happening right now. You're never going. Catastrophizing. How's it showed up before in your life? Just immediately jumping to the worst idea. For me, it shows up when I just want that certainty, so I can start to come to a certain understanding that everything's going to be okay. So catastrophizing, something I'm working on. Taking things personally, that's another one. When you take things personally, it really stems from comparing yourself to others and other people's achievements, because you're wanting to do good in front of other people. So when we begin to take things personally, instead of, if someone's going to correct you on something, it's not a character flaw. It's okay to make mistakes. And so if we're comparing ourselves to others, we don't want to make a mistake because it feels like we can be behind that other person, or another person can be above us. We can kind of take comparisons out and just understand that we're going to make mistakes. Things are going to get messy, and that we shouldn't really take things personally. This is all just a learning adventure here. So when I take things personally, instead of just recognizing, hey, I made a mistake, that doesn't mean I am a mistake. That's the shadow coming up. Okay. And then this last one I want to hit here too, is just post-event rumination. Now, I was in improv comedy for a while. Growing up, I did some theater work, and I thought I should, later in my life, just a few years ago, I was with Comedy Sports. Wonderful people, had a wonderful experience. I just had to stop doing it because I wasn't really feeling it anymore. But one thing that I noticed is that after every session in doing improv is I would go through a scene while at practice. And when you're in improv, and you have to riff, you have a basic understanding of how the scene should be set and the questions you should ask, and involving your other character. So a lot of times it wouldn't go as planned because it's improv. And then driving on the way home, I would just think, God, I should have said this. God, it would have been so much funnier if I had just asked them that, if I had just asked them about this person's career, where they screwed up. And my mind goes into a million different places of things that could have been better. I could have been better. I should have did this. Shoulda, coulda, woulda, thinking. And when we go back and we judge ourselves on this shoulda, coulda, woulda, that is the shadow creeping up. And if we don't have an understanding of what that is, that shadow builds. And then the need to be right becomes even stronger. And then what happens to your relationships when you're always trying to be right? when you can never take things when you take things personally all the time, when you catastrophize all the time. You're a stress sandwich. Who wants to hang out with you? No one wants to hang out with you. You're going to die alone and broke. This is the things I tell myself. That's catastrophizing. Yes. So just know that these things aren't flaws. These are protection strategies. We're trying to stay safe. Your brain is trying to keep you safe. We appreciate it. We appreciate all you do for us, but seriously, I'm the adult in charge. This is when we had to have that confrontation with ourselves. Like, hey, thank you very much for keeping me safe, but I'm okay. There's no saber-toothed tiger in the woods waiting for me right here. Like I need to learn. Thank you for taking me this far. I appreciate you. And that confrontation doesn't have to be like this. A confrontation could be a handshake. Hey, how are you? Greet yourself with kindness. That can be a confrontation too. So a lot of times, going into, there's this man Robert Masters, who's excellent with the shadow work. He's the master. He often talks about, the shadow forms around emotional wounds. So if there's been parts of your life to where you've suffered major trauma, you've been overly embarrassed, or you've been hurt, it's this emotional protection we build around that, rightfully so. So when anything begins to challenge that, or if there is some part of in our environment where it may have sounded the same, it may have looked the same, or even smells can trigger these emotional responses. So it's not you being flawed, it's you protecting yourself in different situations. So again, the shadow can form around your emotional wounds. Not a character flaw. It's you protecting yourself.